Before we jump into today's episode, I wanted to let you know that starting on July 10th and continuing throughout the summer, I am going to be hosting a series of pod chats in my Facebook group. I'm going to be talking to podcast hosts about their podcast journey, why they started, why they continue, the troubles and tribulations along the way, the brilliant ahas that they've had, guests, all of the good stuff. We're going to be talking about it all in my Facebook group, Start a Podcast UK. Come over and join the group at facebook.com/groups/Start a Podcast UK. Come and join the conversation. I hope to see you there. You're listening to the Mindset and Action Podcast, the place to be to grow and streamline your business. I'm your host, Donna Eade. Let's jump into the show. The reality of SEO is the reality of any successful endeavour. It will take strategic, consistent, and sufficient efforts to rank well. Viola Eva. Welcome back to the podcast, everybody. I'm so excited to have you here today. We've got Jules White in the house. Hello, Jules.
Hi, it's lovely to be here.
I'm so excited for this conversation. If you didn't listen to our mini Mindset Monday, go back and take a listen. But today we're going to be talking all about SEO. And I'm going to let Jules explain what SEO is in a moment. But first, tell us a little bit about you, Jules. Who are you? Where do you come from? What do you do?
So I'm Jules White. I'm a website and SEO consultant, and I love working with course creators, podcasters, and local businesses to help them use the content they're already creating to get more traffic and sales through their website. So my background is as a beauty and holistic therapist, so quite different, but I've always been a geek as well, and always been involved in marketing and business development. Every salon role I've always had that sort of part of it as well. And I built my first website back in 2007. And when I'm not working in my business, I like to walk in nature with my husband, Aaron, and our dog, Poppy. And I love cold water swimming as well.
Oh, I have a friend who likes cold water swimming. I think you're all mad, but
We are. And we love the fact that we are all mad as well.
Oh dear, absolute crazy people. But I mean, it looks like a lot of fun, but I mean, I can't even switch the shower to cold for 5 seconds. I've tried it and it just no, it's not fun.
Cold swimming is so much nicer than cold showers. Cold showers are horrible, whereas cold swimming, once you're in, it's lovely.
Yeah, that is Catherine's thing. She's like, the sea is her number one, then her Lumipod is her second option, and then cold shower is the last resort for her. But she does like to do a cold immersion every day. But yeah, absolutely crazy. Okay, so that aside, can you, for those of us who don't know, because I think that it is one of those things that it's one of those acronyms that's bashed around in the business world, and we just all get a little bit scared of acronyms, I think. So can you explain to us before we jump into how we're going to do it and optimize it and make it work for us? What is SEO?
So SEO stands for search engine optimization. And essentially, all it means is that the information on our website is set up in a way that it shows up in search engines like Google, Bing, Yahoo, or anywhere. We can optimize in so many different places for search. But when we talk about SEO, that's what it tends to be. We're thinking about Google because that's the main one that everybody, the majority of searches go on there. And essentially, it's just making sure that the information on our website is set up in the right way, that it does actually show up in those platforms, really.
Brilliant. So my first sort of question to dive into then is, why do we need it? I mean, we've got social media. We can talk to loads of people all the time and tell them what we're selling. So why do we need search engine optimization?
Well, I think the big benefit of why we need it and how it can benefit us is the fact that it's the information on our own website. It's on our own domains. So we're bringing people back to where we want them to take action. So whether that's joining our email list or making a purchase, ideally, it's coming back to our own domain. So it's content that we own. Whereas, as we all know, with social media, we are even with Google, we are to a certain extent at the mercy of the algorithms. Yeah, I was trying to think of the right word, the mercy of the algorithms. But we get the benefit of it being on in the search engines is people are actually searching for what we are selling or the problem that we're solving, the solution that we've got. Whereas in social media, we're relying on interrupting their scroll most of the time. So I think that's the big benefit, is the fact that it can be it's free. So that's probably one of the biggest benefits in SEO, is the fact that whereas an alternative to paid ads, it's free. The time is the cost, realistically, the time to set it up. And it keeps working for you. So whereas with social media and paid ads, as soon as you stop doing that, as soon as you stop posting, as soon as you stop paying for ads, the traffic stops. Whereas SEO can bring traffic into your website for years to come, and you can have blog posts that rank years after you've released them. Obviously, we do need to keep it up to date, and if there's new content that comes out that then Google sees as a better solution to that problem, then that you may need to update your content. But if it's a blog post that actually is still relevant, people are still liking it, it's still the best solution to that search, then Google could be showing that years and years later, really.
Yeah, that's a really sort of interesting way. And I loved what you said there about if you stop doing social media, the engagement stop. And it's so true. You see it even in my stats. Like, I was poorly a couple of weeks ago, and I just didn't have the energy to sort of be present on social, and my stats plummeted through the floor. And it's just like all that sort of momentum you built up can just be gone just like that.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. And I think the big thing is, I think that the real key to it is the fact that people are looking for what you're selling. People are looking for a solution, and that's where you show up, really. So it definitely, we try and make sure that we align what the content that we're creating with what the intent is of a search. So if people are looking for information, it's likely to be a blog post. If people are looking for something to buy, they're looking the search intent. We talk about search intent when we're looking at keywords and what people are actually searching for. If it's commercial, if they're looking to buy something like best lipstick, that kind of thing, best blue shoes or something, then we can make sure that we are actually serving up the right thing so that people then take the action we want them to, really.
What and this is I'm throwing in a curveball because it's just come to me, and I've just thought, do you know what, actually this will be something that people do think, and I would love to know your input on it. Everybody talks about, with search engines, is like, you've got to get on page 1 of Google, you've got to get on page 1 of Google. And to be fair, when I do a Google search, I'm looking at the top 3 answers, and that's where I go. Anything below that doesn't get a look in. So there'll be people out there that think, what's the point of optimizing my website? So I'm so tiny, I've got such a small audience anyway, I'm not looking to be, the next Coca-Cola. I'm not even going to get noticed in Google. What would you say?
So I think that's a really good point. The fact that actually the top 3 positions get 54% of the clicks. So when somebody's looking at the search results page in general, people don't click through to further below that. I know I do. I find that Google doesn't always deliver the best results. So I find myself scrolling down a little bit more. But yeah, the majority of people, you're going to want to be in one of those top positions. And realistically, position 1 is the best one to be in. But things are changing with the search results pages as well. With AI, and Google's changing the way it delivers up those kind of results. So things are changing. I think the benefit outside of that is that Google then understands that what the whole authority of your site is. So Google understands that you're an authority on your particular topic. And that's where I think it can be really helpful to think about SEO, but thinking about it from more of how it can help your whole business from optimizing your website. So if you're having a really great content plan and have the specific things that you talk about with your audience, and I think this really ties into what you talk about in the podcast, of actually making sure that you do define your niche and your target audience, and that you have specific topics that you talk about. If Google can understand that, then we're not trying to compete against companies like Coca-Cola. We're trying to find those little specific keywords where there might only be 50 or even 20 people a month searching for that particular term. But if it's a really, really niche thing, and especially if you're a local business as well, that can be really, that it's a lot easier to stand out in a local market.
Yeah.
But even if you're only getting an extra 20 eyes a month on your website, then if you are a small business and you don't need as much, you don't need that volume coming through, then that's still a lot of people a year, still more over 100 people a year extra going to your website, and that's for one page and one search term. So
Yeah.
and actually, the more you talk about those sort of topics as well, then if you do launch a new blog post or a new podcast episode that you then put onto your website, because Google understands that you're already an authority on that, then you're more likely to actually rank for those terms as well, really. So
Yeah.
I think it's all about basically aligning your content with the main topics that you talk about, and that could be really, really helpful. I think that can often be the case, that people feel like, oh, I don't need SEO, it doesn't matter. But it's all about your whole website and making sure that it makes sense, not only for Google, but also for the users and your customers as well, I think, really.
And I think what you said there was really important, because even though you might think, oh, 20 people coming to my website because of that one search term might not be a lot, 100 over a year or whatever, but just like you said, for one search term. However, the biggest difference to 20 people coming to your website and clicking on your website and having a nose around compared to 20 followers on social media is that they searched for you to get to your website. So they're already interested in what it is that you've got to sell. Whereas a follower on Instagram isn't worth anything. They could follow you and never see anything you do ever again. Like, literally, there's people that I follow because I'm like, oh, I was interested in that, I want to come back to it. Then I've forgotten what their name is. I don't know where to find them. It's
Absolutely. Just like, that's the problem with social media as well, isn't it? And that's why I always say to people, if I see people have got their social media links on the top of their website, that would be one of the first things. If I'm looking at a website and trying to optimize a page, I'm like, no, move those away from there, because as soon as people go over to follow you on social media, they're off your website and they're scrolling and they're down a rabbit hole on social media. So I think that's a really good point, actually, the fact that that comparison of 20 people who are actually looking for what tied into your website versus 20 social media followers is a really, really good point, actually. Yeah.
You can have that one. You can take that one.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm going to use that one. I think one thing to just as a like, when we were talking about what SEO is, one thing that I think helps people to kind of understand when you're thinking about your whole website is, when Google is looking at your site, Google ranks individual web pages. So Google is looking at your whole site, but realistically, if you think about the job that Google has to do, has to go out there and all its little robots go out and crawl the whole internet and decide which page is best based on that search term. It's a tough job to do, right?
Yeah.
So Google needs to understand that you are an authority, that you're an expert, that you know what you're talking about, you're trustworthy, but it's the individual pages. So that's why we have each page on our website, we give that a specific job, rather than our content trying to compete against itself. And that can also be really helpful for people, for our users, because then they know which is the best page to read about, and we can link our content together as well. And that's really helpful for podcasts, that we can then link to other episodes. And if you liked this episode, you might then also like this one as well. So I love it. I think there's so much potential there that people just don't realize.
Yeah, I completely agree. So where would we look at starting if we haven't really done anything to do with SEO? We've had our website up, we did it ourselves. I'm a prime example of this. I created my website, I put it up, I didn't work with a copywriter. I put my pictures up there, I put a blog post up every week with my podcast attached to it. My RSS feed also pulls into my website for my podcast. All of that's there. But when it comes to SEO, there are prompts that my website gives me, because I use FEA Create, and you'll know what that is because we're both FEA members. But it has sort of a little thing that sort of says, oh, are you optimized for your keywords? It sort of gives me a thing. And I've gone through and I've sort of adjusted a few things in there, but I really don't know what I'm doing. So where is it that we start with implementing SEO?
So I think before we start thinking about implementing, it's really important, again, that thing that you said about defining your niche, defining your target audience, that's really important. So I always say to my clients, before they even think about SEO, get really clear on what you're selling, who it's for, and the problem that it solves. Because if we don't know that, then we can't start thinking about what do we actually want this content to align with. Then I would always say start with some keyword research. And this is something that always feels like, I think it feels like a bit of an overwhelming thing, keyword research, but even spending an hour or two on some basic keyword research can make a massive difference. And again, this is something that can then apply throughout our businesses as well. So we can use that if we're thinking about launching a new product, or if we've got a product that's not doing very well, or a service that's not doing very well, then we can do some keyword research and actually find out what that demand is, find out if what else people are searching for around that, the type of language that people are using around it as well. So I think that's that would be where I would say to start with some keyword research, and that can be as basic as going onto a Google search, typing in some words that you think should align to your business, and just seeing what's showing up there. Really, there's a few tools that you can use that will show you how much demand there is, you know, how many people are searching for it each month, and that can help you to then understand whether there is demand for what you're looking for. But that would be where I would say to start, is first of all, do some keyword research. Think about what you feel your business should show up for on Google, and start there, really. So if there are basic things like your own name, your own business name, you want to show up for your own brand first, I would always say to clients to start with that. If you don't show up for yourself, then that's, you know, people, make sure the people who know about you can find you firstly as well. And then there's a few free tools from Google. So there's Google Search Console, which is something where you just put a little bit of code on your website. It sounds technical. It's pretty easy to do. And then that will then tell you what Google is already associating with your website. So that you can go in there and you can see how many people are finding your website each month from Google. And it will tell you what search terms Google is associating with your site. And that can be really helpful, because then you might be able to see a few pages where Google is associating the right thing with that page, and you're maybe in position 5 to 11. So that would be somewhere where actually just a little bit of optimization on those pages could really help you then to those to be the first pages that you start actually ranking for, and getting some traffic coming through to your website from that as well, really.
Brilliant.
So I would say to do that. Also, Google Analytics is helpful, because that will also then tell you how much traffic you're getting from Google, how much is coming from like your email marketing or from social media. And I think that can sometimes be a bit of a wake up call when people look at that and they see how much traffic they're getting through and Google Analytics through Google, or versus how much traffic's coming in through social media, but also how long those people are actually spending on their site. So quite often, yes, you might be getting some more traffic, especially if people are very active on social media. You might be getting a lot more traffic coming in that way, but then people are spending 5 seconds on the site and bouncing straight off again. Whereas people coming in from Google are spending, you know, a couple of minutes on the site, and keeping people on our site is one of the hardest things, really. So
Yeah.
I think that's quite an eye opener then, to be able to see, oh, okay, yeah, I'm spending all this time, or alternatively, I'm spending so much time on Facebook, and actually the people that are coming through my website are coming through LinkedIn. So I need to be focusing more on that. So
Yeah.
that can be really helpful, actually.
Yeah.
And then in terms of the
I look at that.
boxes, yeah, I think it's good to know. I think and it looks very overwhelming when you first go into it. It looks really overwhelming, but actually you only need to focus on a couple of bits, and it's very easy to, you know, to at least know, okay, I can see that I've had this amount of users this month, and most of them have come through Google. So yeah, I think that's really helpful to know. And then in terms of actually the boxes, like in FEA Create, where we've got the boxes to put all our you know, all our meta description and all these sort of things, that most website builders now will have some SEO built into it, so some options. And the main ones that we want to be looking for, so basically with each page on our website, we want to decide on what we want that page to rank for. And we don't want all of our pages to try and rank for the same thing, because otherwise then our content is competing against itself. So we want Google to know this particular page is about this particular thing, and this is the best result to deliver to Google's users are the searchers, the people doing the search. That's Google's customers. And then we would use the keyword. So we decide what we want that page to rank for, and then we would use that in places like the page title. So there's normally a page title or meta title, meta description. The page title is the thing that shows up in blue on Google, on a Google search page, so the main title.
Yeah.
And then the description is the bit that shows up underneath that. So we want to try and have our keywords in there. The meta description, Google doesn't always honor what's in the description. Sometimes Google will actually rewrite it, and quite often what happens is people will think, oh, what do I want my website to rank for? And they'll just stuff a load of keywords in there. And we still have the box in FEA Create with the keywords. And actually, my advice is to not put anything in that box, because that years ago, we used to, the SEO people would tell Google that these are the keywords for this page, and we could get away with stuffing. I mean, not me, this was pre me being in SEO, but
Yeah.
They used to get away with stuffing a load of keywords in those boxes, and then that page would show up on Google. Whereas now Google is so much smarter. And I always think he's a bit like, no, I'll decide what this page wants to rank for. So
Yeah.
I think it's something that actually, that's one of the mistakes I see people doing, is actually using those keyword boxes rather than thinking about the content on the page and making sure that aligns with what they're actually putting in that SEO work there, or the boxes and everything. Yeah.
Brilliant. So I feel like we're going back a little bit with what you said with the keywords there, and I know we're getting a little bit technical here, but it kind of relates to that. So is that why we want to be looking at long tail keywords rather than, and I've said something that some people are going to go, what on earth is that? It's all right, Jules will explain it. But is that why we want to look at long tail keywords rather than just like podcasting?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's where the gold is in SEO, is actually finding those long tail keywords. And the difference is, so a seed keyword would be like podcasting. We might call that a seed keyword, or a head keyword, or a main keyword. And that is the broad term. And yeah, when our small websites are not going to be ranking for those terms. Well, they would be, but they're not going to be ranking in position 1 for those terms, basically. Yeah. Whereas those specific searches, and this, you can find these terms in things like the people also ask in Google's search results page. That's a really good place to look for potential long tail keywords. And basically, a long tail keyword is something that's usually 3 words or more, 3 or 4 words or more, and it can be a whole sentence. And I think that's where people get a little bit confused with keywords. Is it's a bit misleading, because the majority of time when we're thinking about keywords, we want to be thinking about key phrases.
Yeah.
And if say if we were trying to go for a long tail keyword of what's the best podcast platform or something along those lines, again, that probably would be a broad keyword anyway. There would be a lot of content out there around that. But imagine we were using that, then Google will also still associate the word podcast and platform with our website as well. So we would still start showing up for that, but those aren't going to be the ones that we're actually trying to rank for that term in particular.
Yeah. And then the other thing that I wanted to pull on was something you said, which I think is worth highlighting, because I know it's a mistake that I make, is the words that we use versus the words that are actually being searched for. So when you said, like, when I know there's ask the people, and then there's when you go and type in Google, it'll come up with other things, and it's the language. Knowing the language that our clients are using, or potential clients are using, versus the language that we would use is often very different.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. It is. And it's often surprising, actually. One of my clients, we were doing some keyword research. She's got a calligraphy business, and we were doing some keywords of research and looking at the difference in searches between calligraphy course and learn calligraphy. And even just that, there was a big difference. There wasn't a massive difference between the amount of people searching each month, but in the difficulty and also the intent of that search as well. So I think it's really important, yes, getting the language right, but also making sure that we're then aligning the content we're creating with what people are actually searching for. And that can be another area where people just need to just be aware of it, and I guess it's that same thing. We need that on all of our messaging throughout our website. We need to be talking, and to our social media as well, we need to be talking in the language that our customers are using, and take our own expert eyes out of it, really. So
yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. So what are the biggest mistakes that you see people, and we've mentioned a couple of mistakes already, but what are the sort of biggest mistakes you see people making when it comes to their SEO?
I think the biggest thing is ignoring it.
I was going to say not doing it.
Not doing it, absolutely. I think feeling like confusion and overwhelmed and not even putting the basics in place. I think I can't remember my stat now. I've got a stat on one of my PowerPoint slide things that I've got around the amount of websites that don't get any traffic from Google. I think it's up in the 90s, that like 90 something plus percentage of websites never get any traffic from Google. And essentially what that means is that the majority of people aren't doing it. So if you just do a little more than your competition, and by your competition, I mean that real competition. So not the Coca-Colas or the big companies or the big blogs that you're going to struggle against. If you can just put a little bit in place, and if you're creating the content anyway, then just optimizing it a little bit and just having those basics in place can make all the difference, really. So I think, ignoring it, creating content without a plan is a big thing as well. So if you're just creating podcast episodes or blogs or website content without thinking about, okay, what am I trying to show up for here? What am I trying to connect this searches with? Then that's probably the biggest mistake, really, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. I see it. I see it. I see it happening
Yeah.
all over my website.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. This is a
So
prime example of do as I say, not as I do.
exactly. Well, not as I say, because I don't know what I'm talking about when it comes to SEO, which is why I brought you on the show. So looking at, obviously you kind of given us a very good argument for why it's important. And I think that stat that you mentioned was really good. I love stats. So that really sort of sparked my mind, because if we're saying, oh, I'm never going to rank number one on Google for what I'm doing, but if the internet is such a big place and Google is doing a lot of the trailing, it's going out, it's finding these websites, it's going, okay, I think you're talking about this, and it's ranking them. So even if they've done nothing on SEO, it's ranking them based on what it thinks it's about, which could be completely wrong, but it might be somewhere in the realm, which is how we get 10 pages of Google search when we search for something. But if you're actually intentional about it and you actually put in SEO that is relevant to what you're doing, and you're not keyword stuffing, and it makes sense and Google can crawl that, then you are going to rank higher than those people. So that's just something that really stood out to me. If 90% of people aren't doing it, then if you do it, then you're going to be above that. And it kind of works with the podcast. I talk about the podcast stat, which is actually a 90% stat, that of all the people that start a podcast, 90% of them stop after episode 3. So if you continue, you are standing out above the crowd, you're going to have more longevity, you're going to have a better audience, and you're going to build a better retention rate when it comes to loyalty, because they're going to see that you're continuously there. Whereas a lot of people just stop, and you're already going to get more of an audience because their audience is going to have nothing to listen to. So it's like, oh, well, let's go over and listen to this episode that's, episode 10 of this podcast, because this one stopped at 3. So really important.
Absolutely, yeah, so important. And especially for podcasters where they're creating all this amazing content, and actually just having a bit of plan, a bit of strategy, and using that on your own domain is so much potential there, I think, really, for getting those people swirling around your world and really enjoying what you're doing and just raising your authority. I think that's a massive thing, I think.
Oh, that's one of my
definitely.
words, that authority. I talk about building authority all the time. So how do you work with people? What is it that you do with people to help them with their SEO?
So I work with people one-to-one, and I have some courses as well, so some DIY courses. So when I'm working with clients one-to-one, we normally start with a power hour. So we look at their overall content on their website, their plan, the sort of strategy around what they're doing, look for low-hanging fruit. So look for opportunities where they can make some small tweaks and get some quick wins. I really love to do that. I think that's important to be able to sort of do that. And then I do offer VIP days as well. So if people then want to dive deeper, I love doing keyword research for clients as well. So we'll spend a little time together starting it off, and then I'll carry on, do some more keyword research and organize it all for them, so that they've then got a list of pages to create over the next 12 weeks or whatever, or however long they want to take to do that. And then they are creating their content with more of a plan, I think, really. And then I also do implementation. So if people then do want me to, if someone wants me to create a implement it on their website, so create an SEO optimized website. I normally work with people who've already got websites, so they're just looking to make it better. And I love working with people who have DIY'd their website as well. I think that there is so many people start off that way, and I talk to so many people who say, oh, don't look at my website, it's awful. And actually I look at it and I think, no, it's not awful. I would rarely say to people, you need a whole new website. In fact, I never say that unless you've got a whole new business. There's always something there that we can actually use and utilize. So I think that's, I love working with people who just want to understand what tweaks to make, really, to make it better. So
brilliant.
And simplifying it. That's my big thing, is I love to simplify it. It doesn't have to be so difficult, and I think it's made to be very technical. And essentially all we're doing is making sure that what's on our website is what people want and is organized in a way that's easy for them to find, really.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Well, I will leave links down in the show notes for you to go over and check Jules's website out. And I know that she's got something that she's going to share with us that you can go and grab off of her website. But before we let you know what that is, I'm going to do my quick fire round. So are you ready for some quick fire questions, Jules?
I am.
I'm going to surprise you with one that's not on here.
Oh,
Just because, you see, I'm very organized, and I talk to all of my listeners about, having templates in place, streamlining their processes and all this. And my email that goes out to my guests is a template that I update with their questions. And I have yet to update it with this one question on the template. So I always forget to add it in. So I really need to go and adjust my template. So my apologies for throwing this curveball at you, but hopefully it'll be an easy one for you. What is your favorite podcast to listen to at the moment?
At the moment, I've actually just started listening to one, and I can't remember her name. It's Dr. Tara, and it's all about rewiring your brain. And I can't remember what it's called actually, but it's
send
really
me
good.
it afterwards,
I will.
and I'll link it
Yes.
in the show notes, because rewiring the brain sounds like a fun experiment.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. I'm trying to not only listen to business podcasts, because I end up just listening to business ones all the time.
Yeah.
I love Mel Robbins' podcast as well. That's the
Me
other one that I
too.
will often listen to at the weekends as well.
Yeah,
So.
I really enjoy
And then a couple
those.
of geeky, I like crochet, and I've been listening to a couple of crochet podcasts as well.
Oh, I love that. I love crochet. You'll have to share those with me later.
I will.
I like a bit of crochet. I've not got my cardigan on today because it's too warm, but yes, I've got a couple of cardigans that I've crocheted, and I did a temperature blanket last year, which was a whole year long project, which was amazingly fun. So yes, yeah, definitely love that. Okay, so what's the book that's made the biggest impact on your life thus far?
So I was thinking, well, there was one that immediately stood out to me. So there were actually two. So the one that immediately stood out to me is Susan Jeffers, and it's called Embracing Uncertainty. And it's a very old book. Susan Jeffers has passed away now. She was the lady that wrote Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway.
I was going to say, yeah.
This is a slightly lesser known book about that, than that one, but it's one that I read in my early 20s, and it was really a game changer for me. It's basically a lot around helping you to avoid worry and helping you to kind of live as you are now without, not letting worry take over you, really.
Oh,
So
that sounds like a book that I need to read. I am a worrier.
I've read it a few times, and I went back and read it a few years ago, and it was a little bit outdated actually. So, but the prime content is still the same, I guess, really.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Brilliant. Yeah. Okay. Well, I will link to that one in the show notes, guys. You know, it is under my guest bookshelf. You can see what all of my guests have chosen over the last year. So what's your go-to favorite snack when you're in a hurry?
A banana. It's always there. There are always bananas in the fruit bowl. Quick and easy.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've had a year of not eating chocolate. So actually, not that I would go to chocolate anyway, because I couldn't have chocolate in the house and not eat it. So that's why, bananas are always there. They're a good way to go, really.
Yeah. I'm really funny about my bananas. I was talking to a guest the other day. We both like peanut butter and banana. So I like peanut butter and banana on rice cakes. That's my go-to lunch. But I just find that if it's not then, bananas have to be the right ripeness. Have you ever seen the meme that goes around? Well, not a meme, but the photo of all the bananas of different colors, and they're all numbered, and they're like, which one's your banana? And I'm like, if it's got brown spots on it, it's too sweet for me. If it's slightly green, it's too tough for me. I need it right at that nice yellow, still looking fresh, no crepiness in the skin. And so I've always, and I'm so fussy with all fruit like that, apples, that are probably the only one that I can they just grab and go, and they're generally fine. But pears, if I bite into a pear and it's hard, same with a peach and a plum, so I'm just like, I tend to avoid fruit because it's like, it's never going to taste the way I want it to taste.
At least with the banana, when you look at it,
you can tell from the outside.
That one's going to stick to the roof of my mouth, or this one's going to save that one for porridge.
Yeah, exactly that. You are right. What's your ultimate me time thing to do?
It's got to be the cold water swimming.
Yeah, I knew you were
I
going
look
to say
forward
that.
to it every week, and it's actually changed my life. So cold water swimming and deep breathing has cured my hay fever.
Oh,
So I had
wow.
terrible hay fever, and for the last 2 years or 3 years, 3 years, I have not had hay fever, and that has been like life changing, obviously, because I used to
Yeah.
really suffer. And also, the cold water has helped me to understand that I can do difficult things, and that's the biggest thing, I think. Really, I think I wouldn't have made the leap and left my job had I not started cold water swimming. So.
Yeah. So where are you based? What sea are
So
you?
I'm not too far. I'm not too far from you. I'm not in the sea, unfortunately. So I'm in near Bedford. So I'm not
Oh,
too far from you.
oh, wow.
And so I swim. We've got Box End, which is a big water. It's a natural lake, and they do all the water sports there. So I can swim there, and I also can swim in Bletchley. There's one of the old quarries where I swim there. So yeah,
Oh,
it's all
wow.
lakes or the river. I haven't been in the river for a long time because it's just disgusting. But the lakes are nice around here.
Oh, wow. I didn't realise you were so close. We can meet up for a cuppa.
Yeah, you could come cold swimming if you fancy it.
I was going to suggest that might be an option at some point, but I don't know whether I'm brave enough. But yeah, I mean, you can work on me, maybe.
Well, I mean, this is the time of year to do it. It's not like in the middle of the winter. So at one point in the winter, it was 2 degrees when I went in there.
Oh,
So
my Lord. And
I
do you
love
wear
it.
a wetsuit or do you, it's
No,
just swimming
no,
costume?
just swimming costume. I wouldn't do it if I had to wear a wetsuit. I love that feeling of cold water on my skin. It's amazing. It's so good. It really is.
I mean, I'm tempted. I am tempted. So you could probably work on me and get me there. But yeah, I would never go by myself. I wouldn't even know where to start. So
Oh.
yeah, maybe one of these days.
Put that in the maybe pile.
Right. Thank you so much for answering those. Tell us about your thing on your website that we can go and get.
Yeah, so my website is the website successhub.com, and on there, if you go on there, you can get a free website report. So basically, it's like a little SEO report. You just put in your website, you put in a couple of words that you think your website should be ranking on Google for, and it will run a report for you. So you'll get an
Wow.
automatic report. But what I also do is I always look at those reports that people run, and if there's anything on there where I think there's a quick win or something that you could, if there's a broken link or something that I think that could be a quick win for you, then I do send you a message and say, oh, you can just fix this if you want to as well. So
Oh,
I look at all
amazing.
those reports that I run. Yeah, I
Love
love it.
that. Brilliant. So that's a little bit that's something extra because like, oh, that's really good because normally people will do a freebie. It's a checklist. You go and you do it yourself and you work it all out and you do with it what you will. And it's not really connected to the person. So to have that you actually check them and then we'll report back if there's something that you see is really a nice extra customer service touch. We like to surprise and delight. She's surprising and delighting us people. So
Absolutely,
yeah,
yeah.
I'm
I'm such a
going to go
geek
and
that
do
I
it.
just love looking at it. Oh yeah, please do. Yeah, definitely.
I'm going to go and do it. You can go and do it. The link will be below this for you. So please do head over to Jules's website and take a look around, see what her courses are. I know she's got one on podcasting SEO. So my podcasting friends out there, if you want to get your podcast SEO up, and we are actually looking, I'm reminding Jules about this, but yes, I have another podcast about podcasting and I'm going to invite Jules over there to talk about podcast SEO specifically for that one for the next season. So if you are interested in hearing more about that, then you can come and join us for that one. But that is it for today. Thank you so much for joining me today, Jules.
Thank you so much. I've loved it. It's been really good.
Brilliant. So we will see you in the next one, guys. I hope you have a fantastic weekend and I'll see you then. Bye for now. Don't forget to hit those stars and leave a review of the podcast where you listen if you found value in what you heard today. It's a free way you can help the podcast reach more people just like you.